All right, good morning. We're live on the Falcons Podcast on YouTube. We're going to bring in Atlanta Falcons on SI on Facebook and Scott Kennedy Sports on Facebook. About 50,000 strong over there. See if we can reach a few more people. A like and a share always helps on that as well. And we've got green check marks on StreamYard. We're good to go. Welcome in, everybody. This is Wednesday. That means we're about 8 days from the NFL draft. And man, is it like Christmas morning? You know, it's one of those things I feel like I'm always excited for it, and then I always come away kind of going, man, let down season. But I truly feel, Nick, this is the season where sitting at number 15, knowing the Falcons, you know, their offense is basically set, that there's needs everywhere on defense. I just feel like it's going to be really hard not to get a player that we're excited to see come week one that's going to be penciled into the lineup as a starting 11 on the defense on week one.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult it's more about hitting on the pick itself versus hitting on the position,
right?
For where the Falcons are at. We've said that many times. And glass half full, glass half empty view. It's not a great draft as far as first round grades. Now your day two stuff, there's going to be plenty of long-term viable options throughout the class, but there's some years where the 15th overall pick is still like a pretty darn good player in a first round grade. This year, you're probably getting somebody who's graded a 1-2. So that's the glass half empty view. The glass half full view is that's pretty true after like as far as defensive players go, that's probably pretty true after like pick 6, pick 7 this year. Like a team like the Panthers sitting there at 8, they're going to get somebody who's probably about the same grade as what the Falcons are going to get at 15. So while you're not going to get probably a slam dunk player there, or at least as a prospect, you're not missing out too much. You're not like right on the cusp of like, oh man, will this guy fall? You're far enough down. And again, it comes back to might as well make t-shirts, trade back for this team if you can. If you can get a bunch more day 2, early day 3 picks, that makes sense for the team, especially if you're trying to turn over the defensive scheme for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, 2 picks, 3rd year, 4th year. No, I guess you're right. I guess we went from, and you do it all the time anyway. That's why I talk about, schemes. You fit the scheme. I'm like, it's like a tick word for me. I'm like, guys, you change coordinators every 2 years. I'm not so worried about scheme as I am, can they play? And then you do 1 year veterans and free agents and you fill those guys in for specific schemes. But we went from, what's the old guy's name? Baltimore Ravens.
Dean Pease.
Dean Pease to Nielsen. That's 1. Nielsen to 3, 4. I guess, yeah. 2,
4.
3. It keeps changing. It's 4 different guys in 4 years. That's for sure.
That does not lend itself to, even if you drafted well, it's pretty hard to have any sort of cohesion because the body types are different. There are guys, I know that we kind of push back and forth on this guy. In the first round, you have guys who are like scheme independent. But as you get further down, there's it's so niche in what you're asking guys to do. And it's just really hard to build a team that way.
You're looking at traits at that point. You're looking at developmental guys. If they were really good in any specific scheme, they'd probably already be gone.
Yeah.
Or, again, we talk about a chart. There's football goodness and there's athletic goodness, and the guys that go high right on that are tops. And then you go, okay, this guy was an insane player. He had 200 tackles at Southern Missouri Tech, but he ran a 4.8. Okay, well, let's take him in the 7th. Maybe he can be a really good special teams player. Oh, it turns out he turns into Zach Thomas, an undersized guy from Miami and a Pro Bowler. You never know. Or, and that guy couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie, but he ran a 4.3. Let's take him in the 6th and see what happens. Those are the kind of guys you're looking for. And, what we're going to hit on today was the overall, the biggest needs. I want to look through the depth chart. And, we've talked about them a lot, but we're a week from the draft. We're going to get a lot of new viewers in here. There's a lot of people really just checking in for the first time on the NFL draft. So we're going to hit on the biggest needs based on the Falcons roster. Now, that can mean a bunch of different things. Needs can mean I'm playing a game tomorrow. Where's my biggest hole? Where are they going to attack? This is what my scary part on this team is. There's long-term needs, and then there's resource allocation. My biggest need right now could be kicker. It could be Younghoe Koo. But, that's not how you're going to spend your resources. That's not where you're going to go in the first round. So we're going to hit on all that, but we want to say hello to some folks that have come in Evan J was here nice and early before we even got started. He says, good morning, y'all. Hope everyone's having a great week. Saw one of the sleeper needs is tight end. Yeah, I would say wide receiver also is a sneaky need for this team. I know this sounds crazy, but Luke Lachey is going to be a beast, the Iowa tight end. Well, let's ask our Iowa guy over here what he thinks about Luke.
Luke Lachey, apparently one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. People who work in the program just adore him. He suffered a catastrophic knee injury week 2 or 3 back in 2024. Maybe it was week 4. And he, not 2024, 2023, but he was not the same last season. He's not the most physical blocker for his size, and he's also not the best athlete for his size. Now, he was much better before and he's a fine athlete, don't get me wrong, but he was much better before that knee injury. So he's going to go round 6. I don't expect him to be this, classic Iowa tight end cliche. A lot's going to come down to that knee injury, though. But if you're looking for like a tight end 3, somebody with some developmental upside, he'd be fine. I just wish that either he was a better athlete, could pull away from some guys a little better, or a better blocker. Because right now it feels like he's like just not far enough in either of them to be a starter. But again, that's why you're talking about a round 6 option. And personally, there's round 6 guys that I prefer more just because they have some sort of trait you can lean on. Linebackers and tight ends are weird in the NFL draft because I don't think there's any position that teams miss on as much in the first round. Like your investment in the first round is about the same hit rate as any pick day 2. It's not that they're not valuable. It's just that teams can't evaluate them. And I think for linebackers, it's because what linebackers are asked to do in college is a completely different game than what they're asked to do in the NFL because the hash marks and the spacing. I mean, everything's a freaking RPO out there. They're not asked to read like they are in the NFL. And tight ends, there's not many good tight ends. And a lot of those guys that are those body types play pass rusher, or they're not developed that way. So
that's what I was waiting to get to, Nick.
Yep. That's so tight end is weird. I'm not against it. But a lot of the tight ends that hit, they're these athletic freaks that have not been developed yet. So I would personally take a chance on somebody who's a height, weight, speed guy later on, has the mentality, and see if you can develop that player, which Lachey, again, I think he's got a high floor depending on that injury, but I like Jalen Conyers from Texas Tech via Arizona State. And I like my favorite late sleeper in this class is CJ Dippre out of Alabama via Maryland. You also have somebody who's the best blocker in this class at tight end is Jackson Hawes at Georgia Tech. So there's depth in this class at tight end.
I like the kid at Clemson, too. I like his hands and body control as a receiver threat. Britting Stool,
You're correct. Yep. I actually think he was a higher rated recruit than Brock Bowers in that high school recruiting class. He's weird, though, because he weighs like 235, right? Yep. So it's like you're never going to have him in line. If you want to have that, that pure boundary guy, slot guy, but is he better as a pass catcher than like an actual receiver? Because that's who he's going to be competing with in reps. Right.
So. Yeah, because they use, you talk about all the time, and we've seen it in Drake London. Why go with a tight end when I could go with a big wide receiver who can get in the way of an outside linebacker? I'm not asking him to drive a guy 10 yards deep into the backfield. Drake does a lot of that for the Atlanta Falcons when he lines up in the slot. He's a better blocker than Kyle Pitts at 20, 30 pounds less. John Harrell, good morning, everybody. Good morning to you. Coach is coming in early before we even got live and giving super chats. Love to see it. He says, morning, fam. Appreciate y'all. Enjoy the rest of the week. To you as well. One of those crisp mornings. Hit the 40s again this morning, Nick, down here in the South, and then we'll be in the 70s by the end of the day.
That's perfect. So, that's the best.
Yep. One of these gorgeous spring days where I lived out in California, and the weather was very similar to this for 360 days a year. It was, you put your face up in the sun, you go, it's just beautiful. But what I missed living out in California was the green. Everything is so dry and dusty. And right now you go outside, you've got this picture perfect blue sky. The flowers are popping and all this green everywhere from all the trees. You're like, this is what I miss. This is just a perfect time of year in the South.
I don't need y'all to run up here and move to Seattle by any means, but it is very green out here. And we've been hitting that 40 to 7.
But you're not getting the 75-degree weather too, and sunny as much. It's just perfect out here today. So hope you're enjoying your week too, Coach.
Yeah. We sound strange.
He's coming in with a super as well. He says, morning, y'all. Good morning right back to you. Do y'all like wide receiver Ty Felton at 118?
Yeah, Ty Felton, Maryland
Mm-hmm.
receiver. Yeah, absolutely. He had a pretty darn good combine overall, and he's had some pretty inadequate quarterback play for the Terps. So much talent out there in Maryland. It feels like it's a sleeping giant. They're always so freaking soft. But yeah, he's a good player. And I think round 4, if you're looking for kind of a speed option Z with some ball skills as well, I think Ty Felton would make some sense. It would depend on what the board looks like at the time. Like currently my favorite like round 4 option wide receiver of choice is probably Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, who got injured this season. But like, I think he's worthy of like a 60 to 80 overall pick if it wasn't for the injuries. So really like him a lot. Some guys also in that round 4 range, maybe Jalen Lane, if you're looking for some pure speed. I know you're a fan of Keandre Lambert-Smith, maybe 4 or 5, but yeah, Ty Felton, late 4th round. I think he's in play.
Yeah, Keandre's a really good football player. I think he went down in the 4.4s at the combine. And he just knows how to play the game. You know, I always think of a guy like Terrence Mathis for the Atlanta Falcons. You know, he wasn't all that big. He wasn't going to run by too many people, but by God, he was a good wide receiver for a long, long time. I think Keandre Lambert-Smith can be like that. And yes, wide receiver that's a sneaky need for this team. You know, you've seen a couple injuries. If Darnell Mooney goes out, who's your wide receiver 2? You know, Ray McLeod had a career year last year, but he's got 1 year left on his deal. Darnell Mooney he's got 2 left on his deal, but that 3rd year is very flexible. That's the 2 years of guaranteed money, and the 3rd year is basically a club option where something usually happens. That's an action year because the players don't want to play on a year of non-guaranteed money because it means they're on a week-to-week contract, and you've got some flexibility in your salary cap. So if you still want them, you usually extend or, you know, sign a new contract. And if you don't want them, you cut them. That's typically how it works. So, and again, it looks good now, but one injury and all of a sudden it changes things a little bit on that. But appreciate you. We sound strange. And want to get to Edward Brown coming in here yellow with another super chat. Thank you, my friend. He says, miss Monday's show. Not sure if you guys touched on Julio Jones' retirement. We did not. One of the best ever put on a Falcons uniform. That 2011 class is loaded with future Hall of Famers. That was the special 08 class of wide receivers. I was covering recruiting back then, and we had AJ Green and Julio Jones, you know, back and forth for, you know, since they were sophomores in high school. That was going to be a 15-year, you know, friendly rivalry type. Jonathan Baldwin was a really good wide receiver in that class. And one of the best ones, I forgot his name. If someone wants to try and do a quick search, he was a 6'6" gazelle out of Mississippi. Ended up signing with Southern Miss, and I can't remember his name. And I was like, this guy might end up being the best out of all of them. Tore his knee up, had a little trouble with some grades, and never, ever really got it going. But that class of 08, which ended up being 11 and 3 years and out for the NFL draft, was loaded. And yes, as far as I'm concerned, Julio Jones is the best Atlanta Falcon of all time when it comes to his accomplishments and longevity. I think Deion Sanders is the most talented Atlanta Falcon of all time, but I don't put him in that same bracket because he was only here, 4 years? He didn't have the same longevity. He made his name really with other teams. And then Matt Ryan's in there too. And, you know, there's some guys in there. But Julio, for his accomplishments, is arguably the greatest Atlanta Falcon of all time.
You're talking about DeAndre Brown.
DeAndre Brown, that was him. He was 6'6", 200-pound gazelle. He was so good. And tore a knee up, he ended up at Southern Miss. He had some qualification problems coming out of high school, and it never really came for him. But he's always one of those when old guys like me sit around and go, "You remember that guy? DeAndre Brown was that guy." And I'm not positive he was in that same class, but he was plus or minus. He was right in there with those guys.
And pretty good job by the recruits, the analyst here. They had 2 other 5-star guys. Both end up being, I believe, first-round picks, but definitely made in the NFL. Not as good as A.J. Green and Julio Jones, but Jonathan Baldwin and Michael Floyd as well. So the only other 5-star.
That was a class, man. That was
pretty good.
That was like we talk about this like the 1983 class of quarterbacks. That was 08 was our wide receiver year like that. It was the year of the wide receiver.
And to Edward's point,
Edward, appreciate the support.
Yeah, that 2011 class: Von Miller, Marcel Darius, Patrick Peterson, Nick Fairley. You got Julio and AJ Green. JJ Watt was in that class. Cam Jordan was in that
They're
class.
not all built the same.
No, they're not. And this year is
even in high school, they're cyclical, and that was a special class of football players, and a lot of them lived up to it.
Yeah, they did. You also Tyron Smith just retired too. That'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer there at USC, and pretty much everybody who didn't take a quarterback in the top 10 walked away pretty happy. Top 12, because I'd say the Panthers walked away pretty happy with Cam Newton. But other than that, it was you'd mentioned him yesterday, or maybe it was Monday. Blaine Gabbert, Christian Ponder, Jake Locker.
Those was like 2000. I was going to say that was 2011. But that wasn't 2011.
It was.
Was it? It was?
Yep.
Okay, that year I was like, yeah, that class that blew my mind. I was like, what are we doing here with the quarterback craziness? It happens every so often, and if we see 4 quarterbacks go again in the first round, that's how I'm going to feel like it is. Like Jackson Dart, it's Christian Ponder. I think he could be a good player, but not at top 12 guys. Not that high, for goodness sakes.
And I will give the NFL the benefit of the doubt here a little bit on this one, not to just appeal to authority, but we've had, the last 2 drafts or 2 of the last 3 where last year, like Michael Penix, Bo Nix, are they first rounders? Are they more day 2? NFL said round 1. They look, small sample size, but they look good. And then it was the year of the Malik Willis, Sam Howell,
they didn't pick those guys,
and they
didn't reach.
No, so we'll see. If the NFL takes a guy early, I'll be like, okay. I'm always skeptical because you also have massive reaches. Situation matters for those guys, but they seem to hit those 2 drafts as far as the range of those guys going. So interesting. We'll see what happens.
Sip Thoughts, good to see you. Appreciate you being here. OMT, good morning. Talking about the picture I use. What are the needs? And I use a picture of Terry Fontenot going like this. We've got big. This isn't what he was saying, but that's what's in my head when I use the picture. Big needs. We've got them. So good to see you, Philip Crawford. He says, hit that like button. That's good advice for everybody. Thank you, Philip. Good morning. Michael Ronquillo, he's over there from Arizona. Welcome. Glad you are here with us this morning, as always, like the sunrise. Want to get into this just a little bit, talking about the biggest needs, and I'm not going on special teams right now. But when I look at the depth chart and the way it's set up, and ESPN has it set up like a 3-4 base. Okay, now it's going to be multiple, and you'll move guys around, and there really isn't hardly a base offense anymore. Base is what do you line up in first down normally on 1st and 10 from the 25, and that's about the only other time you can count on seeing that defense for the rest of the game. But they've got the Falcons in a 3-4. And in that 3-4, on defense, it's got Morgan Fox at end, David Onyemata at nose tackle, Ruka Rohuro at the other end. Your outside linebackers / edge rushers in a 3-4 or a 5-2 are Leonard Floyd and Arnold Emichetti, with the inside guys being Caden Ellis and Divine Diablo. And they run 12 players here, so that's kind of cheating. With cornerbacks, A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, D. Alford, and your safeties is Jordan Fuller and Jesse Bates III. Now, we know the offense. The only change from last year, and not really even a change because he started 8 games, was Ryan Newsel. Otherwise, it's the same guys. Going into this draft, hearing that, what I just said about that as far as the starters go, what do you think is the biggest need? Where could I take a first-round draft pick and improve this team the most?
Well, as always, with the caveat that it depends on how the board falls in the individual class. If we were just kind of like generic, everything is equal when you're on 15 and you could pick the position, for me, it would be edge rusher. You have Emichetti on his last year of his contract. Floyd is not a great starter at this point. Trice is a complete unknown. And Malone is a depth special teams type. So you have multiple needs at edge rusher, honestly, on the whole. Like, you have bodies out there. Like, you can go out there and play football games. It's not to that extent. But if you used your first 2 picks on edge rusher, I get it. I would totally understand it. So I think edge is number 1 for me, and I feel pretty confident saying that.
Yeah, and the thing is I'm looking at this game, I'm like, okay, it's nice having 3 pretty good-sized guys out there, and now I've got some depth. If I'm running a 3-man defensive line, I've got Taquan Graham, I've got Contavious Street in the back, I've got Brandon Dorless as my backup guys, that's not bad. The problem is I'm not sure I've got anybody over 300 pounds on the front in a 3-4. That can be trouble. I look at this right now, and Onyemata's listed at 300 if you were Googling that. Wait, was he right?
I'm like, how big is he? Okay.
Yeah, Onyemata's listed at 300. I think Rook's listed at like 295. Mm-hmm. And a 274 defensive end is okay if my other guys are monsters. But if I'm in a 3-4, I am really, really light up front. Someone else said it here. You know, we don't. And let me see if I can find the comment. I want to try and give you credit on this. Let me see. I'm sorry, but it was Nando. Nando, was good to see you. He says, Scott and Nick in the chat, we have to pick Kenneth Grant at 15, and then maybe cornerback Amos in the second, and then get our edge. Just know that we don't have a true zero technique at nose guard on the Atlanta Falcons roster, and they don't. Now, do you want to spend? Typically, you don't want to spend a 15 on that position, and you don't want to reach to fill a need if there's a better player available, because as Nick says, we can argue about this, and there's valid arguments. No, edge is a bigger need. Ebiketie a specialist. He can't hold the edge worth a damn. Floyd's 32 years old, and he's going to be a pass rush specialist as well. So you're still going to need the edge rusher could be your number one need. And frankly, I think one of the answers here also, when I go through that list, is Troy saying cornerback. Man, that's the same group of guys last year that gave up the most touchdowns passes in the NFL. Yes, it goes with pass rush. I've said it a zillion times, Nick. The best defensive back is a quarterback on his ass. But Mike Hughes, D. Alford, they don't fill me full of confidence. And then those are your starters. You're going to need 5 or 6 cornerbacks. You don't have. So there's valid arguments for every level of defense right now to say, no, defensive tackles, interior lineman's a bigger need. Okay, I get it. No. Edge. No, corner. Jordan Fuller, what are you talking about? You can't go into there with Jordan Fuller as your number 2 safety. It's safety. I get it. I agree. Right now, for me, Nick, I'm with Nando on this. I think if I'm playing a game tomorrow, I want a 330-pounder I can plug in the middle of the defensive line.
The good news for the Falcons on that front is this is a pretty good defensive nose tackle class. There's a lot of big bodies that you don't necessarily have to use the first-round pick on in Kenneth Grant. I don't know if you saw in Mel Kiper's most recent and final mock draft, he had Kenneth Grant falling out of the first round completely.
Wow.
So
it seems like a couple of those guys are really, I think it has more to do with the positional value. They just don't want a defensive tackle unless he's Jalen Carter in the top 25.
Yeah, I think you do have to have some pass rush ability. I think there's questions about Grant, too. He didn't test as well as we had hoped, given all the stuff coming out of Michigan. Now, granted, there's been some talk he's been dealing with a hamstring issue. Does get his feet a little bit close together against the run, can get a narrow base, and plays with some pad level issues. So I don't think he's a slam dunk at 15. If he had a better testing profile, I'd be like, okay, screw it. And I know it's supposed to be the tape at the end of the day, but we have pretty strong correlation to great big athletes on the defensive line tend to work out pretty well if they have the tape like Grant does. And he tested fine. Not great, not special, but like more like what I'd expect a guy going pick 30 to 50 in most classes. But the depth of the interior defensive tackle class is great. Just getting into it, the nose tackle types, Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, he's out there 330. You got Alfred Collins, who played a little bit more B gap. He's going to play 0 to 2I, I believe, in the NFL. He's sitting there at 330, a little tall, but good nonetheless. Jay Toye from UCLA, 340. He's going to go there probably round 4. Cam Jackson, I think Cam Jackson, Florida. Yep. He's an interesting option too. Really he's
been day 3. I've seen him like 7th round, Nick, with Cam.
I think he's going to go early day 3. I think he's a good enough run defender. I would expect him round 4, maybe round 5.
There's a big difference in day 3.
Yes, it is.
Between 4 and 7, that's a big difference.
I'm glad they go fast, even though there's 10,000 commercials in between each one. And a few more guys. CJ West, love him from Indiana. You have a Jordan Phillips from Maryland as well. You get Yaha Black from Iowa. I mean, there is some meat on the interior in this class. So I'm not worried about finding a body It's more about like, do you have enough picks to like take the body at a point that makes sense? But there's nose tackles galore.
Yeah, and again, just because I say it's the biggest need doesn't necessarily mean that's where I want to spend the top pick. Mm-hmm. But what scares me about this, because I can find, I won't say I think Terry Fontenot has done a very good job of finding serviceable defensive linemen on a shoestring budget through his tenure of the Atlanta Falcons. It's one of the things that helped. I think going into the 22 season, I was like, this is a 2-15 team, and they won 7. One of the reasons why was one, Ledford did a fantastic job. The offensive line made a huge leap. The offensive line went from turnstile to good. I mean, they weren't just they didn't just go to average. They became a plus run blocking unit. And then so the difference between 2 wins and 7 wins on a team that had half a dozen true NFL guys was the play in the trenches. I think Abdullah Anderson was on that team, did a really good job. Kentavious Street has been really good. LaCale London has come in and done a job. So they need to find another one of those guys to add on if they're going to run 3-man fronts. 4-man fronts, it looks a little different. Now you're throwing Fox as an end, okay, and then you've got Dorless and Onyemata in the middle, and then you've got Taquan Graham that can go in and out. Zach Harrison in and outside on those. Now it's looking better with a 4-man front, but that takes one of your edge rushers off of there. So maybe if you bring in, if I draft an edge at 15, is he going to beat out Leonard Floyd and Arnold Ebiketie consistently, or is he going to be like Dallas Turner was last year for the Minnesota Vikings, where he was brought along slowly? So Ulbrich, that would be a good problem for Ulbrich to have, Nick.
There's no such thing as having enough pass rushers. Your top guys are getting 50% of the snaps anyway. If you're talking Max Crosby, what is he like? The highest in the league was like 80 or something. So you're going to have a rotation of guys in the best teams. And we've seen it with the Eagles multiple years now. Unless you have a transcendent first ballot Hall of Fame, like perennial all-pro type, the way to win up front is to send waves of guys, bodies, and it doesn't matter if they're coming from the inside or outside. Millie Mills also brings up the 425-pound.
He's bigger than that.
God bless.
He's about 460, 470. And
look out.
Talk about doing a job. So Desmond Watson, y'all know I've got the Atlanta Falcons on SI site. I've also got the Florida Gators on SI site. So I watched a lot of Florida Gators, and Desmond Watson was about 470. He's pushing 5 bills. And he wore like 21 when he was out there. It wasn't hard to pick him out. They'd come up and I'd say to my wife, I'm like, can you pick out the 470-pound guy? And she's like, my God. It looked like for one of the most underrated. Perk your ears up. I want to hear what y'all say about this. But for me, one of the most underrated sports movies of all time, and one of my favorites. And when anybody asks, like, what's your favorite football movie? Wildcats with Goldie Hawn always comes to mind. This dude was Eric Finch from Wildcats. Trip him. We'll run right behind him. Desmond Watson, yeah. And I think he's going to have to be a free agent. Can you draft that guy other than 7th round Mr. Irrelevant?
I don't know. He's such an outlier. It's concerning. I'll tell you this, playing at altitude, I would not be drafting him for Denver. But that's fun to watch just because the anomaly of it. But man, that's crazy. 465, 475. That's insane.
I don't think he can move well enough, even if it's just stand there and hold. We're not talking about Gilbert Brown here. Or who was the Ravens had a guy like that too.
Terrence Cody, Mount Cody.
Yeah. And those guys still move. Cody was at Alabama. I remember him there. They moved a lot better. Gilbert Brown could move. He was scary within 5 yards. But his first step was crazy. Was crazy quick. Evan J coming back in. Good to see you, Evan. Appreciate the super chat, my friend. He says, what do y'all think about Will Johnson? You think you can get him if 3 OTs and some wide receivers? What about an extra quarterback, Evan? Don't forget that. I want the Saints to go after Jackson Dart. And some wide receivers go top 14. Do you think Will Johnson will be available? I think there's a chance. I think it's 50-50.
He did have a weird process for Will Johnson. So coming into the season about a year ago, it's like a consensus top 3 guy, going to compete with Travis Hunter as the number 1 cornerback. Some people I really respect him had him as the number 1 cornerback, but in an incomplete picture. And then 2024 is a down season. He does have some highlights here all the same, but had an injury and just kind of seemed like he coasted to some extent. Can't speak to that fully, but just not the same impact that he had out there. And then he has this injury. He doesn't really he doesn't test at the combine. And then you have him at this, individual pro day event where he does not run the 40. And his big question is the long speed. Can he keep up with guys? So you're not running the 40. If you're going to run terribly, then don't run. But now you kind of answered that all the same. So we do have questions there. And then also he didn't do very well. He did the shuttles. I think it was the agilities, and those weren't very good either. So I still think he's in play for 15 because the tape is good, plays a premium position, good size. But he's got question marks, not a complete profile. So will he be there? Very possible because of all the question marks. But I'd be interested in him at 15.
There's 2 guys that this sounds like to me, Nick, that, a year out, like this time in a year, well, the guy to watch in 2026 is Keldrick Falk. I've been saying that since September. Monster. He's as good a defensive line prospect. A defensive end, Keldrick Falk. Oh my goodness, he's good. That's what we were saying about guys like, who was the Penn State guy? The corner.
He ended up going top of round 2 still.
And how did he do this season? Do you remember? Because he was a guy that we were talking about being top 10. I'll let you think about that because I've got another one. The other one that was in that realm was Keely Ringo, the kid from Georgia, who slipped down like this. When I hear people talk about Will Johnson, those are the 2 guys that spring to mind to me right away as a lot of hype, big program. Were they overhyped? How did they end up doing after they slid? I don't know. I don't remember. But I just knew they did end up sliding some.
Yeah, I'm still looking up. Was it the guy that the Steelers took? Was it Joey Porter Jr. or was it somebody else?
I think it was somebody else because Joey Porter Jr. was pretty damn good. But maybe it was. I think maybe he went up and down. But Joey Porter Jr. had a pretty good season. Or was it? We'll have to come back to that one. But those were comps I was thinking of that seemed like they slid just a little bit.
Somebody's still going to end up taking Will Johnson in the first round just because the tape is really good. It's a little different where it's not like, Keely Ringo. It's like, okay, this highly rated guy, he's stiff, but he's explosive. And then more of the NFL eyes get on him. He goes through more of the process and it's like, okay, actually we overhyped this guy. This one's a little different because the tape is still good, but we just we have one big question for him, which is the long speed. And that could drop him down a tad. So we'll see. I think that he's going to have a chance to go still in the top 15 picks, but he's an interesting one. I'm still looking for the this cornerback that we're talking about here. Was it Kalen King?
It was Kalen King.
And he ends up going second round to the Packers. He was okay. Yeah,
it was Kalen King. Because I remember you telling me last year, and Trenton, good to see you. He says, trade down and recover some picks. The buzzword that he's hearing is cost efficient. Yeah, and as we're going through this, I want 3 top 50 picks somehow. I want a defensive tackle. I want an edge. I want a corner. That's what I don't know. I would be willing. You've only got 5 picks. You can't trade away a pick. Baloney. Can I take one of those 7ths and pair it with a 4th and move back up into the 3rd and get, and get one of those guys, get a defensive lineman? Maybe. Are there enough there where I can get my defensive tackle in the 4th? Get one of my big linemen? Maybe. My God, this is a year I would want to have another top 50 pick. And the Falcons have 3 picks before the 7th round, 2 in the top 100. Frustrating. Austin Fry says, thoughts on Jalen Ramsey? Should he get cut? Might be worth it on a 1-year deal. He's got a ton of guaranteed money, so he would be cheap. And if you could get him for, the minimum, absolutely. Would he come to the Atlanta Falcons on that? Probably not. Probably not. The Falcons are not in that realm right now where they're getting guys like that to come in and play on a short-term contract until they. Now, next year, we talk about this year being a tipping point, Nick. Next year, if they make the playoffs with a bunch of money, full round of draft picks, and a young quarterback, a young, exciting quarterback, then yes. But right now, that's the Washington Commanders. That's where Jalen Ramsey ends up going. If I'm going to do a 1-year deal, I'm going to go play with somebody that looks a little bit more of a contender, not a team that has a 6.5 over-under on wins. You just don't get those guys, Austin. You don't. And that's what 7 straight years of losing will do for you.
You're not in the position to go for it right now. Jalen Ramsey is like probably a 2-year window left. He's already fallen some. He's more name than he is. He's like one of those guys in Madden, like he's still ranked in 95, but really in reality now he's like an 84 because he's holding on. You get a little bit of that veteran a year or two delay on that. And cornerback's a position that falls off a cliff. But no disrespect to Ramsey. I mean, one of the best cornerback prospects in my lifetime. So he's a heck of a player, but it doesn't make sense where the Falcons are at right now. Tony Bradley, would everyone be upset if the Falcons drafted Starks at 15 if they were to stay there? My issue is that I think Starks is a good safety. I don't know if he's this like Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton caliber safety. I think he's a tier below. And if you're talking about safety, which is, I'll be honest, Scott, I hate watching safety because it's so boring. It's kind of like watching like outfielders in baseball, like their defense, like how many chances do you actually get on that? It's God bless them. But that's, I think Starks, if you trade down to like 25 to 35, then we're talking if he's there, but 15, it's hard. The one thing I will say about Starks is that coming out of the combine, from what I heard, everybody was raving about his mental makeup, like his approach to the game. You're going to get a professional there who loves football, but I think you need to chase a little bit more positional value if possible there. Cornerback, defensive line over Starks at 15, personally.
Yeah, Tony, and someone said Scott's obsessed with Kyle Hamilton. No, I'm just saying that he's a Pro Bowl guy. He's an all-pro. And if I could get an all-pro safety at 15, I'd be all for it. I would say absolutely. I just don't know if Starks is an all-pro safety, if he's that caliber of guy. So I don't know enough about that. If I move back and 2021, Amanawari, 6'3", 220 pounds, 4'3", he's got the potential to be whatever he wants to. But and again, the comp I've used physically for him, Nick, was Taylor Mays. Now, Taylor Mays was not a very good football player. He's one of the best athletes to ever put on a helmet, and it made him good enough to be a successful football player because he was such a good athlete. But instinctually, fundamentally, awareness, down. Those are your scores that are way down. I don't know where Nick – I haven't watched enough of him to be able to say that, yes, this would be the right guy. I had watched enough of Kyle Hamilton at the time to go, yeah. He's going to be the right guy. And Michael says Ramsey's just not worth 20 to 25 million. That's it. Yeah. And that's why they're trying to get out from under that contract, and whoever takes him on, it's almost exactly Kirk Cousins money. Literally it's 21.1 million is what is still owed to him. If someone takes on his full contract, someone's going to have a boatload of expendable cash that they can't carry over to try and take on that much money. And frankly, it's too late now. It's like, you might be able to do that during the middle of the season as you're a contender, but once you've already made that decision, we want to move on. It happens. Then that's either now you're on a timeline, either we're cutting this guy or we're trading him early.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make sense for the Falcons right now with Ramsey. If you were, defense was much more full. It's kind of the cherry on top. Cornerback in general is a cherry on top of defense, in my opinion. A lot of times, if you don't really get the value from them unless you are a certain threshold along the defensive line. So that's one thing. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're talking draft, you need to hit the best players. Like, what's the Falcons' biggest need heading in the draft? Draft good players on the defense. Yes. You need impact players. Yes. Yeah, exactly. So if it's cornerback, even though like from a team building perspective, your defensive line is probably not good enough to take advantage of them, you're talking about a 5-year window then to get the defensive line right. And you can turn that around, especially with some money coming up here after the dead cap are coming off the books. But yeah, cornerbacks, secondary, back seven, typically only as good as the defensive line in front of them.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, the first 2 years that we were doing this was the Kyle Pitts pick. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense for where this team is. I wasn't thrilled with the Drake London pick at the time just because, again, you're weak in the trenches and you don't have a quarterback. because but for long term, Drake is an excellent pick. He's an excellent player. I'm glad he's a Falcon. And I wanted to trade back. That was what it came down to. There's like 4 wide receivers between where they took him at 8 and 20 that were all pretty good. Trade back, get another pick. You need more players. But yeah, trenches. Offensive line's pretty good. They tried to address the defensive line last year with Rook, Dorless, Trice, and Zion Logue. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Troy, good to see you. He says, "Miss you, Scott, on Broncos for breakfast." Miss you too, Troy. I'm in the background on Mile High Huddle a lot in the evenings, but not too far away from Broncos country. And glad to see you come in. Appreciate you coming in and saying hello. Trenton, one more, and then we're gonna get to a mock draft. He says, "I think taking a flashy name at edge when so many will be available later would be a mistake for the overall, but a win for the tenured drought at edge. I doubt if Terry Fontenot prioritizes rush over team." Yeah, for me, and this is why it makes so much sense to trade down. In most of the mocks right now, the only edge that's off the board is Abdul Carter. I see it all the time. It's like the Falcons will have their choice. Now, if they love one of those guys, if they absolutely love one of those guys, then they need to stay at 15. They don't need to say, on my board, I've got Mike Green as a 90, and I've got Mykel Williams next as an 80. I need to go Mike Green. I need to take him. But if I've got 90, 90, 89, 88, I need to trade back, man. I need to go back a few spots. So, I look at these guys. Would you be happy with Mykel Williams at 20 and a 3rd-round pick as opposed to Mike Green at 15 and not another pick? I would. I'd be pretty happy with Mykel Williams and another day 2 pick, Nick. So, we'll see on that one.
Yeah, right now it depends on who you ask, but there are 3 edge rushers I would say that are in play. Where do you categorize Jalen Walker? That's a
edge. I think especially for, and I guess that's when I said that he's the one that's on the board. He's kind of a hybrid, but yeah, he's one that's usually gone as well.
Yeah, which I think I like Jalen Walker a lot. Apparently he's the heartbeat of that Georgia defense, but he's a weird enough profile, like a outlier, that I'm like, top 10 pick? Are we for real there? I mean, I get the first round stuff, like taking a chance on him from pick 14 to 28, but top 10, I don't know. I like him though, all the same. But if you're talking edge at pick 15, your options are Mike Green, Mykel Williams, and Shamar Stewart, and every single one of them has questions to some extent. Mm-hmm. I'm actually doing a community mock right now with 32 other GMs, and I'm the Falcons, and I just took Mike Green at 15. So he's the one who's probably, as far as the pass rush profile goes, is the highest. With that said, I mean, what's played for the most part over the last few years? Let's just look at last year as a microcosm. You have the really bag of pass rush moves guy and Leatu Latu. You got the fast, lengthy guy with some speed and dip, but not a lot of power, Dallas Turner. And you got the wrecking ball, unbelievable amount of power, heavy sledgehammer hands, and Jared Verse, who's getting it done. So I think power tends to play a little bit more. That's one thing that scares me a little bit about Mike Green. Scares me definitely for Ezeraku, for
and Boston James Pierce Jr.
And James Pierce Jr.
Forget the other stuff, but the profile. Yeah. Now I'm going to counter with that, Nick, and say Nick Benito.
He's an outlier, though. I mean, he just.
I look at the Falcons roster and I see Braylon Trice. He's not. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have any twitch to him. No. Can he be that edge-setting Bud Dupree type of guy? You already got that guy. Mm-hmm. You don't have what they lack is explosiveness off the edge. They don't have anybody. Ebiketie is kinda, but no, he's not. I mean, he's not explosive off the edge. They don't have anybody off the edge that truly scares the bleep out of you. Anybody. Yeah. As far as just like, okay, we have to account for this guy because if we miss an assignment, he's going to be in the backfield. You know who was like that? Grady Jarrett. That's the only player the Falcons have had like that on the front in a while. Is Grady freaking Jarrett.
Yep. And just kind of rounding it out here at this point about the edge rusher spot. To me, I know we talked about just as far as the pathway goes for edge, but like we say, it's the end of the day, it's about drafting good players and impact players when you have a chance. I don't care if it's edge or interior defensive line.
Yeah.
You need to find difference makers who wreck game plans and change blocking schemes up front. So let's say that like you have Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. Somebody in the chat gave him a shout out. I know there's some questions there, but let's say he's your highest rated interior defensive line plus edge rusher when on the clock. Okay. Are you telling me you don't have a spot for pass rush on because you're already filled there? No, you need to find difference makers. It could be Derek Harmon out there. So I think anything
down
to that
the board. We would love for the highest rated guy to be an edge when the Falcons are picking at 15. And that would be great, but it might not be. And again, if we've said anything, we've said two things over and over and over and over again. One, trade down. We would love to see a trade down, pick up another day 2 pick. 2, best defensive player available. Best defensive player available, because there is a need on every level of the defense. Linebacker, maybe not as much. That's the one during free agency that got addressed that pushed linebacker out of the immediate need category. Safety, yes. Jordan Fuller's not the answer long term. There's no, I don't even know. I'd have to look it up. I'm like, okay, backups at safety. Who else is even there? DeMarco. That's who I forget all the time. Someone called me out in the chat and in the comments about it afterwards. Thank you for doing that, because I agree. DeMarco Hellams might be. Okay, he's intriguing. He's not an answer right now that you go in saying, okay, I've got this spot covered, because he's got 4 games under his belt and he's coming off a season-ending injury. But DeMarco Hellams is interesting. We'll be that's somebody that we will be hopeful about. Same as Braylon Trice.
He's
and
a
then,
stock
Mike Abernathy backs up Jesse Bates. No. So you can go safety, you can go edge, you can go corner, you can go defensive tackle. And what we're going to do right now is enter the draft. And by God, I'm looking to trade down, Nick, if it comes up. How do we look on that? Let me go to one more zoom. I'll go to 150 and see how that looks. And we'll hit start draft. So, and there's Walter Nolan and Malachi Starks. I use the public board instead of their board because they've got a couple of real big outliers here. Cam Ward, number 1. Travis Green, Mason Graham, 3rd overall. I'd be a little surprised if that happens. So where the hell? Oh, there's Travis Hunter, 2. Will Campbell goes. Tyler Warren, 5. Aston Genty, 6. Shador goes to the Jets. Abdul Carter falls to 8. That ain't happening. That's who was missing. I'm like, who's missing in this normal group? Abdul Carter, Giad Campbell, Jade Brown, someone that and Will Johnson, those guys are gone. And there goes Mike Green at 14. So now we're looking.
Trade down.
Yeah. We've got trades. I've got Walter Nolan, Malachi Starks, Donovan Ezuraku, Kenneth Grant. I've got choices here. Jalen Walker, that's the outlier on this board.
Michael Williams is also an outlier. He's low too.
I've seen him go like in the late 20s on some big mocks.
I think he's going to go top 19. So we'll see. But
Buffalo's got the 30.
They have 2 second-round
31. I don't really want to go all the way back to 30. What would I get? I mean, if I went all the way back to 15, I would want
56.
I'd want 56 and 62. 56 and 109. That's a little rich for me.
Give him 118 back.
Well, no, I'm good with 109.
You are?
If I go 62, you mean?
And then give him 118. 60% chance.
All right, they did that. So we went back to 30. And there's Kenneth Grant. And there's Kenneth Grant right there at 30, which is a possibility. We've seen him in the second round. On a lot of mocks. There's James Pierce Jr. I'm probably off on him. There's Amos at corner. I want Kenneth Grant in here. So if I come out of this, maybe I didn't get my edge. Kiara, I think you said last time, not getting an edge or not getting a defensive tackle. That's what it was. In the comments, says it's kind of crazy coming out without a defensive tackle. Sometimes it's just how the board falls. We're going to get your defensive tackle right here. She says, I'm late, so if you brought this up, but our run defense is icky. The reason these teams gain yards down the field on us, got to disrupt their flow. Peace. Kiara, I've said for right now, for a game, if I've got to win tomorrow with this lineup, my biggest concern right now is nose guard. long term, how do you spend your draft? But I'm going, as Joe and Joe Andrews has a good point. If Carter drops to 8, I'm moving up. Yeah, that might be a good call too. It ain't gonna happen, but that's a good call.
Can you scroll down just a little bit? I just want to see who's still available. I know we got to get rolling here. Norman Lott, Trey Amos. I was just curious if Malik Williams was still there. He's gone. He's definitely gone at this point. Yeah, he's not that ranked.
Michael.
Yep.
Yeah, Michael ends up going. He must have gone pretty quick. 16.
Yep.
He went the pick after ours. And they took Jalen Walker, who we probably would have taken also.
Yep. Not a good fit for the Bills.
If he was there, but we're gonna kind of assume that he's gone and not play this because the PFF has him ranked way, way lower than everybody else. Kira, we're addressing the defensive line in a trade down with 30, and we got a couple more picks out of it. Now, I would still like to get an edge. I would still like to get a corner. Benjamin Morrison was taken in the Field Yates, Mel Kiper draft yesterday as someone to look at. Tyleik Williams is there also. Maxwell Hairston and how do you pronounce his name? Savone Ravel at 46.
I think either Maxwell Harrison or Savone Ravel make a lot of sense here. I don't think you have a talent at edge. Harrison was the best athlete at the one of the best athletes at the Senior Bowl, or excuse me, the Combine. Ravel's massive. I wouldn't have an issue with either of them.
I'm telling you, if I'm going, when I look at the teams, like, okay, I've got to line up and I got to win a game tomorrow. The edge room doesn't scare me as much as some others anymore. You know, it's like, okay, I need a long-term answer. But Leonard Floyd's a pretty good player. Arnold Ebiketti's a pretty good player. I got Trice coming in to back up to see what happens there. And D'Angelo Malone is a decent player. If I'm running those 4, we've seen a hell of a lot worse in the last 5 years in Atlanta. That's competent. That might not be, spectacular, but I feel like I can go to war with those guys better than I can not getting a defensive tackle today. I mean, for right now. Long term, I need an edge. I need a pass rusher. I want somebody there for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But if we didn't come out of this with the edge, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I still look at there's Princely right there. He's okay. Oh, here's 00 right here.
Oladejo. Can you scroll up a little bit? Did my guy on the other board on the actual picks? Did he come off? I was looking for Thule from Ohio State. He must have just come off a little bit before. That's too bad if so.
There he is. He went 49. That means he went 49 to the Bengals because the Bengals traded Trey Hendrickson to the Falcons.
Okay.
I want to go. I want to get my edge here, and I want to go. I think this is a really underrated guy. I love this guy. Let's go. Let's go, Femi Oladejo.
The one I just did not. I don't disagree with you here. The one I think is worth a shout out here is Kevin Winston Jr., who's an absolute freak athlete at safety, one of the best alley fillers. Great size. He had an injury this year, but he had his own pro day and apparently just wowed teams as far as the athletic profile. I know he was really highly rated coming into this season as well. So I'm expecting him to come off the board day 2, but we should get our edge here. You like Femi. He's one of your pound the table guys.
Yeah, I like Femi, especially here. Yep. We're at pick 56 and we get another one. Yep. Terry Ocean Boy Martin, what it be? Bird Gang, good to see you, brother. Let's go. We're picking again at 62. There goes Jared Ivey. He's been climbing too. He had a great Senior Bowl. And Kevin Winston Jr. is right there. Might as well take him.
The other thought here is Benjamin Morrison. You already took Savone Ravel. You could double dip at cornerback to raise your odds and walk away with the player. Benjamin Morrison a little smaller too, so maybe some slot stuff there. But let's go Winston. There's viability in double dip.
Poetic about Winston.
Yeah, nope. I just like to consider the options. Winston's a heck of a get though.
Now we're just looking for now you're looking for traits. We're in the 7th round. Somebody show up here. Maybe it's a little size here.
Ty Robinson.
Robinson get another big body. And now I'd like some speed anywhere I could find it.
Armstrong's not necessarily a speed, but he's a heck of he's a good athlete at wide receiver.
Michael Badger's a good wide receiver too.
Yeah, he's a viable option.
Let's see. Let me just check at wide receiver here, y'all. I want to see because I like Badger in this spot in the 7th, special teams guy, return guy, can do some things. And if I see he may have moved up, I'm like, if I see Keandre Lambert-Smith, I'm taking him.
He's gone.
Here's a speed guy right there.
I was going to say, there's your fastest guy in the class. One of them.
Let's go Elijah Badger here and get a wide receiver. All right. Terry says if he's not wrong about this too. If the Saints take Shedeur Sanders, the Falcons-Saint rivalry will go to another level. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Because now you're going to have Dion on the other side because blood is thicker than water. So the C-. So we come out of this with one wide receiver. But we traded down. It was a little bit of an expensive trade down, but we picked up 2 second-round picks out of it and moved out of 15. We got Kenneth Grant, got an edge I like, got 2 defensive backs out of this I like, got another big body, and a special teams guy and maybe a 3rd wide receiver, fourth or 5th wide receiver roster guy here. I mean, I'm biased because we made the picks, but I'd be over the moon with this haul, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, you got good return on investment on your overall class. You got, I mean, the defense is completely changed. You got everything besides linebacker in here, but you double dipped. You got a 0-1 technique plus a 3 to 4 eye as well in Ty Robinson, which I think Ty Robinson's going to go 4th round, Scott. So that's when it's again you're going off the board. We'll see, but this is what you're hoping for as far as reshaping the class. You took a guy that you were considering at 15, fell all the way to 30. You had your choice of corner. Honestly, the way it fell, Scott, at 46, I'm like, can I trade back 5 spots and still see if there's one of those cornerbacks there?
Yeah, see if Hairston, was it Hairston,
Savone, and Ravel.
And Amos. Was Amos still on the board too?
Amos was gone. Okay. You had Ravel, Maxwell Hairston, and Benjamin Morrison. Who it was. Yep. But yeah, this is great. This would be phenomenal.
I would be, like I said, I'm biased. We made the picks. But I would be over the moon if the Falcons were able to basically, I won't say overhaul because not all these guys are going to play right away. Mm-hmm. But I've got contributors at least every level except linebacker. Kenneth Grant's going to play. Savone's going to play. Double O's going to play. And Kevin Winston's going to play. Jalen Walker, we passed out of 15 and went away from that. And if he was there at 15, the Falcons probably would take him. Except for the fact that they don't take Georgia players and they don't take edges. But this is an outlier. He's gone on every single other mock draft I have ever seen except PFF through their simulator. If you read their analysts do their mock drafts, he's gone by 15 when they actually do them. He's gone by 15. So, we can take another look at who did we pass over? Again, I just went through Jalen Walker on here, but Mykel Williams could be available. Walter Nolan could be available. Donovan Ezeraku could be available. Walter Nolan, yes. Nick Amanamori, yes. Malachi Starks, yes. Nick Scourton, yes. Excuse me. Those are all the guys that you are not taking by moving to 30. But you get Kenneth Grant, who you were considering at 15. So yeah. Like I said, I would be over the moon in a week. On the Monday following the show, I'd be doing this. Yeah. Tony Bradley says, what percentage, and realize I'm a cynic anyway, but the money involved on this and the age and the window where the Falcons are, what do you see the percentage of Falcons get Hendrickson in a trade? 1%. Is there a way? Yes, never say never, but it doesn't make sense for where the Falcons are right now to give up what they would have to give up, including money, to get Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, you are a off-season away, getting a lot of stuff off the books, getting your picks all lined up, and finding out what you have in Michael Penix before. Are we in buy mode or are we in rebuild mode with a regime change? So we'll see. I do got to fly though, Scott. So a lot of fun to do the mocks. Yep. This is we're like a week from draft eve. So a lot of fun.
Yep, we're going to get out of here. I want to say thanks again to Evan coming in a couple times. Coach coming in as well, nice and early. We sound strange. Troy and Kiera with the support. Thank you. And Edward Brown as well. So I want to say thanks to everybody. Enjoy a gorgeous spring day in the South. We will be back on Monday, and it will be, sound the trumpet, draft week. Can't wait. I hope the Falcons do something like this and really come away with something where we can all be excited to see the new guys that are coming in instead of, a class of red shirts, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just not as exciting. We want to see these guys. We want to unwrap our presents and play with them right away, not put them on layaway for the next year. So we've done that now. So now you got Rook, you got Dorless, you got Trice, you got Penix. Lots of exciting players from last year's class we'll get to see this year. But I want to see this class come in and make an impact in 2025 as well. Y'all have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Peace.